Gunshots rang out steps from the Washington Monument. Bullets hit a child on the National Mall. The White House went into lockdown, and the vice president's motorcade had passed through the exact same spot minutes before it happened. 11 days after an armed man tried to storm the White House Correspondents' Dinner to assassinate the president, is America watching the beginning of a pattern it doesn't yet have the words to describe? This is not a hypothetical anymore. This is the fourth time since 2024 that a violent threat has reached the immediate perimeter of America's seat of power, each one more brazen than the last. And Monday afternoon, in broad daylight, in one of the most surveilled square miles in the world, a man pulled a gun and fired at Secret Service agents 9 days after the last attempt. The question investigators are racing to answer tonight is not just who this man was, but whether this was random or whether it was connected to something larger. To understand why Monday's shooting is so alarming, you have to understand the context it landed in, because this didn't happen in normal times. It happened in the middle of a cluster of threats that the Secret Service has never had to manage in this kind of rapid succession. At approximately 3:30 p.m. on Monday, May 4th, plainclothes Secret Service surveillance agents were patrolling the outer perimeter of the White House complex. Standard procedure, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They spotted a man they described as suspicious. They could see the visible outline, or visual print, in Secret Service terminology, of a weapon beneath his clothing. They followed him for a brief period, then called in uniformed Secret Service police to make contact. When the uniformed officers approached him, the man ran. Then he pulled the weapon. Then he fired directly at the officers. The Secret Service returned fire. The suspect was struck and transported to hospital in unknown condition. In the crossfire, a juvenile bystander, a child, whose age has not been publicly confirmed, was also hit. The child was taken to hospital. Secret Service Deputy Director Matt Quinn confirmed the injuries were not life-threatening, though Quinn was careful to note that investigators believe the child was struck by the suspect's gun, not by return fire. The location, 15th Street and Independence Avenue SW, just over a half-mile from the White House, steps from the Washington Monument on the National Mall, one of the most iconic and most visible stretches of public land in the United States. And the White House itself went into brief lockdown as emergency crews responded. White House reporters were escorted off the North Lawn and moved inside the briefing room. President Trump was inside at the time, delivering scheduled remarks at a small business summit, apparently unaware, sources say, of what was unfolding a few hundred meters away. Here is where this story moves from an incident to something genuinely disturbing, because of what happened just 9 days before. In July 2024, there was a first assassination attempt. Trump was grazed by a bullet at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. In September 2024, a second attempt. An armed man was arrested outside Trump's golf club in West Palm Beach. On April 25, 2026, Cole Thomas Allen stormed the White House Correspondents' Dinner with a shotgun, handgun, and knives, charged with attempted assassination. And on May 4, 2026, an armed suspect fired on Secret Service agents near the Washington Monument, and a child was struck. That is 4 separate violent incidents targeting or occurring in proximity to America's president in less than 2 years. The last 2 happened 9 days apart. And the April 25th attack, the Correspondents' Dinner incident, was the closest any would-be assassin has physically gotten to a sitting American president in decades. Cole Thomas Allen, a 31-year-old engineer, ran through a security checkpoint holding a loaded shotgun, fired it at a Secret Service officer who was only saved by his bullet-resistant vest, and was carrying additional weapons, including a handgun and multiple knives. His written manifesto called himself the Friendly Federal Assassin, and listed grievances against government policies in detail. Experts warn this could trigger a serious reassessment of how threats to the presidency are being assessed and communicated, because the Correspondents' Dinner attack was the third in the series. Monday's incident is the fourth, and in between those 2 events, in just 9 days, an armed man walked openly near the White House perimeter in broad daylight and fired at federal agents on the National Mall. The question security experts are now asking is not whether these incidents are connected. It is whether the frequency itself is the threat. The vice president's motorcade passed through minutes before. Secret Service Deputy Director Matt Quinn confirmed that Vice President J.D. Vance's motorcade transited through the very area of the shooting shortly before the incident occurred. Quinn stated there was no indication the man was targeting the motorcade, but added that investigators would determine that conclusively. Investigators are also looking at whether the suspect tried to access the White House earlier that day. Authorities are probing whether the alleged gunman may have attempted to reach a White House entry point before being spotted near the monument. If confirmed, it would indicate a deliberate effort to reach the White House over several hours. A child was caught in the crossfire on the National Mall. The juvenile bystander struck during the exchange was taken to hospital. Investigators believe the bullet came from the suspect's weapon. Though this has not been definitively confirmed, the question of motive remains unresolved. The suspect has not been publicly identified, and their condition is unknown. Until investigators can question them, the motive behind the attack remains unclear. Step back and look at what this pattern means. The assassination of a sitting American president has happened 4 times in history, each event leaving lasting national impact. Near misses carry their own significance. Each one reveals vulnerabilities and tests the limits of security systems. The April 25th attack exposed a key issue. The event wasn't designated a national special security event, despite the presence of the president and top officials. That decision is now under review. Monday's incident adds further concern. A man was able to move within the outer perimeter, carrying a concealed weapon, and was only stopped once he was already engaging with officers. The system worked, but narrowly. The broader implications are significant. Political violence appears to be increasing in frequency and boldness. The institutions designed to prevent it are being tested repeatedly. There are still critical unknowns. The suspect's identity and condition remain undisclosed. Investigators are examining whether there was any connection to previous incidents or broader motivations. There is also uncertainty surrounding how the child was struck. That determination will have important legal and public implications. The deeper question is whether this represents a pattern or a coincidence. Analysts have warned that rising political tension may be contributing to an environment where such incidents become more frequent. So here's where things stand. An armed man fired on Secret Service agents on the National Mall, steps from the Washington Monument in broad daylight, 9 days after a major assassination attempt. A child was injured, the White House locked down. The vice president had passed through moments earlier, and the suspect may have attempted to reach the White House earlier that day. The Secret Service contained the situation. The president was not harmed. The system functioned under pressure. But 4 incidents in less than 2 years, 2 within 9 days, raise a larger question. The system is holding. For now. The question is how long it can continue to do so. America's most protected address, its most dangerous stretch in years, and the world is watching what happens next.